an individual user that has an email address already created in the FontAgent 7 server. Whether you're using FontAgent Client 7 or 8, the registration process is the same for an end user that would like to connect to the server, whether they're just synchronizing or whether they're an administrator. Here's how this works. There are a couple different ways that you can add users. You can add them manually here and save them. You can select the permissions they get if you so choose, or you can go up to the right side up under the menu, and here you can add a single user, you can add multiple users from a CSV file, or you can use your Active Directory service to populate the users for you. Now keep in mind, all users are defaulted at synchronization only. This means any user that is in the server from the Active Directory or other means will have the ability to click on the synchronization button and receive the fonts that have been selected for them. Now, let's take a look at how this happens. First of all, a user would have to be presented here on the server in order to connect. That is done by the administrative folks. So if you're an administrator, you need to make sure that that person's email address exists on the server. The email address is then authenticated from the client to the server. There's also a password that needs to be generated. How does that work? Okay, so let's do this. What I'm going to do is select a user here, and I'm going to say invite selected user. Now this is one way of getting your users to register the software. Now keep in mind that when they receive this email, they'll have to create their own password using the forget password button on the web page that will be presented to them from the email they'll receive. Okay, so how does this work? I'm going to go ahead and invite selected user. So I need to select the user first and go back to my menu. As you can see, it errored because I didn't select it. Selected one user, receive an email from the server. Well, now this works whether you're on the cloud, keep in mind, on the cloud server or on the local server. The functionality is exactly the same. So if I was to go into my no reply FontAgent email, upon clicking this link that's been provided, I can now go in and select from the invitation. So now we've created this invitation here. This is the email address. Now I need to add a password. Now this is the password that I create that I'll use to actually register the client. Save changes. Make sure they're the same password. So if you didn't do something right, it will tell you. This information is not auto-populated and it does require user interaction. So, now once you're presented with that, you can now download the Macintosh client. In the future, when we release the Windows client, that will be available as well. So you don't have to necessarily deploy the client to the user. You can just send them that email invitation, and from there they can download the most current client for your workflow and get started. Okay, so now how do we actually take this information we've created and make a password? Okay. Now that's one way to get to use the password. The other way, not now, is to just enter in your known Active Directory or email address that you know is presented on the server once you log into the server. So if I log out of here and you just want to log in, and nobody's going to send you an invitation. If you use your Active Directory email address that's is already on the server, you can enter that in there and use forget password, and from there you can also create a password by entering in that email address that you have for your Active Directory. So if I click on forget password, it'll ask me for the email address that I want to send the instructions to. From there, it will let you create a password. and you'll use that to log into the client. So there's two different methodologies here. They both work the same. Okay? So once we've done all that, we will go to the client. Now, if the client is not registered, you'll be presented with this purchase registration page. You'll enter in the appropriate email address and the password that you've created. If you've forgotten your account or password, you can have it emailed to you. There's also an advanced tab that you need to be aware of. For people that are administrating the server, you need to make sure that you select the correct, and it defaults to cloud. If you're on an internal server, make sure that you click internal and that you default it to the appropriate IP address. And that will get you the registration you need. And that's it. You're registered. And you can see that, boom, we're registered. So email addresses are very important now, as we no longer use serial numbers.